Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Ian Burkhart. I'm the Vice President of the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium, and I'm glad to have you all here for SCI Connections for June of 2022. I'd like to go through our agenda like I am right now. We'll give a little bit of update as to what NASCIC has been doing. Then I will introduce our speaker, John Shepard, and he will have his session on health coaching for professionalizing peer support in SCI, along with his colleagues, Sarah and Terry. And then we will have a short little Q&A section after that. So please save questions either for the end or go ahead and enter those into the chat as we're going along. For some of you that may be new to NASCIC, it was formed in 2018 as an advocacy organization to make sure that there's a more active and unified front related to research initially. Our membership includes 52 community-led organizations, 260 individuals with spinal cord injury, and 60 partner organizations that are in the field. The mission of NASCIC is to bring about unified achievements in research, care, cure, and policy by supporting collaborative efforts across the spinal cord injury community. And to achieve this, NASCIC will identify gaps, communicate resources, and be a conduit for collaboration between the community of individuals living with spinal cord injury and the many stakeholders. With speaking on our membership numbers there briefly, I would like anyone who is not a member to join. Membership is free and allows you to connect with other partner organizations, other individuals, and really make sure that you're staying up to date with all things spinal cord injury related to research, care, and advocacy. Some of the projects, just to give you a little bit of update that we've been working on recently, our number one project is our SCI research advocacy course, which will be a online educational course to help teach individuals everything they need to know to be a good advocate for research when it comes to living with a spinal cord injury, to make sure that they're up to date on different injury models, different types of injury, what happens to an individual after the injury, and then also for researchers understanding what it's like living with an injury. NASCIC will also be presenting at a few conferences that are upcoming: the Paralyzed Veterans of America Healthcare Expo, the Academy of Spinal Cord Injury Professionals Conference. We will be at ISCOS and the Unite to Fight Paralysis Science and Advocacy Symposium, as well as the American Congress on Rehabilitation Medicine Annual Conference and the Society for Neuroscience Annual Conference, Neuroscience 2022. Additionally, some recent projects that we have been working on with some of our members, with the VA Palo Alto healthcare system, we've been working on a project that is about healthcare discrepancies for individuals with spinal cord injury that identify as LGBTQ+. Additionally, with the University of Minnesota, we're working on a helping recruit participants for a trial using Brivec to reduce neuropathic pain. The University Health Network is running a project that's through the lens of people with spinal cord injury, using photo voice to help prevent falls and other secondary complications that occur with spinal cord injury. And another University of Minnesota project that's trying to address the needs of and how individuals with quadriplegia use assistive technology. With that, I'd like to introduce one of our speakers today, John Shepard. He's a PhD student at University of Toronto's Rehabilitation Sciences Institute, studying health services related to people with spinal cord injury. John himself has a spinal cord injury for almost 20 years, and this really helps motivate his experience and his research for advocacy. I'd like to let John introduce his next two speakers, starting first with Sarah.
Thanks so much, Ian. And it's a real pleasure and a privilege for us to be here today. I just want to say that I think this is a very appropriate forum for us to be presenting our work, to the extent that our project, I hope you'll see, is in a unique way an expression of the SCI community and of the goals and needs and concerns of people living with SCI. So Sarah, sorry, Ian. Sarah and Terry are both amazing women who I'm delighted to have as colleagues, who wear many hats. Sarah is a researcher, lecturer, athlete, and community leader based in Boston and Rhode Island. She's been living with an SCI since 1990, and she teaches and does research and advocacy around health promotion and disease prevention. And she is really the person who, more than anyone else, has pioneered and developed through many successive phases of research with a tremendous perseverance, the model of health coaching we're going to be showing you today. And Terry has been living with a spinal cord injury for 26 years. Terry also wears a lot of hats. She's a mom, wheelchair rugby coach and former Paralympian. She currently works as the manager of outreach and program operations at the Rick Henson Foundation, and is a virtual peer program lead at Spinal Cord Injury BC. She's a board member of the BC Wheelchair Sports and president of the BC Wheelchair Rugby Association and Wheelchair Race Series Society. And Terry is someone who constantly keeps me wondering how she manages to do everything. So yeah, we're going to have some things to share about work that we've been doing together recently. And I'm just wondering, Ian, should I switch to my slides at this point?
Yes, you can go ahead and share.
Great, thanks. Okay, hopeful everyone can see my screen. So we're going to be speaking with you today about professionalizing peer support in spinal cord injury through a new model of peer health coaching. So I'm going to give you an overview of the SCI new health coaching program. Terry is going to speak to you about her experience as a peer health coach, and Sarah is going to take it home, talking about how we're really trying to define a new role, which is that of professional peer health coach in SCI. Just a bit of a big picture look at where we're coming from. So I mentioned that Sarah is at the origin of all of this with a program called My Care, My Call that really pioneered health coaching in SCI over the phone. Since then, our team has worked together through a number of phases to pilot and develop this peer health coaching program. So we ran a small 10-person study in Canada in 2015 through 2017, then a randomized controlled trial that is just in the final stages of research right now with 60 people in Canada, and then a further feasibility trial in the States with another 25 people that is also just wrapped up, funded by the Greg Nielsen Foundation. And so across these three studies, we have trained 15 coaches, each with 90 hours of training. We've coached 100 participants, secured $1 million in research funding from 3 funders. We've developed our innovative program and a custom online platform that supports it. And we're doing a mixed methods analysis, that is to say, both quantitative and qualitative analysis to document and evaluate the intervention and explore its impact. And this is really important, something I'm going to go into a little detail about. We provided paid employment and a really significant skills development to 20 people living with spinal cord injuries. So the coaches are the heart of the program. They're the active ingredient of this intervention. And that's why we've really focused today on the coaches, having Terry speak about her experience and what's really significant and different about this role. So the coaches have been carefully selected from a competitive field through a structured process based in particular on their communication skills. So we especially look at their ability to be empathetic and active listeners. And as I mentioned, we give them extensive training. So we invest heavily with over 90 hours of training, including motivational interviewing and brief action planning, which is something that they're certified in by a group called CCMI. In addition, they do mental health first aid training and extensive role play practice, so that before they start coaching for the first time, they have a solid sense of confidence in their ability to effectively play their role as a coach. Finally, during the time that they're coaching, we have been meeting weekly for ongoing professional development through weekly team sessions. How about the coaching program? So lots of people know about different formats and models of peer support or peer mentoring in SCI. So the coaching program we've designed has some specific characteristics. It's been designed to help the coach and participant develop a rapport and work effectively together on issues that are of importance to the participant. So they meet through a series of coaching sessions that are semi-scripted and last, well, 45 to 60 minutes, shall we say. 8 to 14 sessions over a flexible period of up to 6 months. So they meet together at a schedule that is convenient for the participant and choose topics that are of interest to the participant. The coaches follow a scope of practice that I'll say a bit more about, but the crux is that they don't offer advice or treatment. What they instead do is they support skill development. And so we know that the crucial skills for self-management are things like problem solving, goal setting, and action planning, and how to find and evaluate information. And so those are the things that coaches work on with their participants, again, around problems that are of interest to the participant. And finally, coaches encourage people to work with their existing healthcare teams. So they're not in any way looking to substitute for, and certainly not to contradict the medical advice of professionals. When you put together the peer coaching model and the custom online platform that our team developed, this is something that's really transformational. Previously, peer programs offering support have been limited to matching people who live close to each other when it's based on a physical meeting. That really limits the number of people who can coach and the number of people who can be coached, the number of matches you can make. Doing this online is transformational because it enables scalability of the coaching model. So suddenly people can have a coaching relationship with a coach or a participant from anywhere in the world, really, but certainly across Canada and the States in our experience. The technology platform that we developed supports the program in important ways. So it offers video conferencing, session scripts for the coaches, information sharing and record keeping, and supports the brief action planning process that the coaches work on with participants. So again, the key thing about this, where the magic happens, is in the coaching relationship. And so the relationship is a partnership between coaches and participants that guides participants towards changes that they want to make to improve their health. It's based on trust and respect, allowing participants to explore their values, reasons for change, and what's important to help make that possible as they make positive health-related changes. Again, it's participant driven, so it meets people where they are. It doesn't come in and say, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. It doesn't presuppose what people want or need. And in that way, it can address the diversity of the SCI population, their different presentations, their needs, the circumstances. And we do that through the thoughtful development of the scripts and resources that coaches use. Finally, we use motivational interviewing and a method of behavior change called brief action planning that has been shown to be effective in helping people to make important health-related changes. As I said, the coaches follow very closely a scope of practice that is designed to enable them to operate effectively within a limited scope, and that doesn't interfere with people's existing relationships with their healthcare team. So to do that, the peer health coaches are trained and certified, as I said, in brief action planning, mental health first aid, and ongoing development. And within the scope of practice, they do not provide medical diagnosis, treatment, or advice. They do not provide psychological counseling or treatment. They do not substitute for the advice and treatment of medical professionals. And they never advocate for a particular treatment or course of action. Rather, they help people find and use information to make their own decisions. So the focus is on the peer or the participant, their circumstances, and their health goals. All of this is done in a way that is anchored in lived experience. And this is the last point I'd like to dwell on for a moment, because I think this is something that is really important and fairly unique about this program. As we know, living with SCI is unique and unusual. And in many contexts, certainly inpatient rehab, but throughout the healthcare system, people learn about how to be a person with SCI from people who don't have SCI, right? There's a bit of a paradox there. One learns how to be disabled from non-disabled teachers. Obviously, people within the rehab setting have important skills to share within each of their scopes of practice. But as we know, the real experts in living with the SCI are, of course, people who live with the SCI. That's because they have the inside emotional understanding of the, again, unique and unusual experience of living with spinal cord injury. And they have the tacit knowledge from their experience of learning how to live that they can pass on. And so we found that sets up an incredibly powerful bond. So connections with peers can be absolutely transformative. And our aim by professionalizing peer support is to level up the peer-mediated support that is already offered really across the world of SCI in different kind of peer mentoring programs. And so we've done that by having peers in multiple roles throughout the team. And this is, again, what I think is somewhat unique. So our team made a conscious decision to hire people with lived experience of SCI, reasoning that there were multiple benefits available from doing this. One was a very pragmatic one. We could benefit from certain government funding programs to leverage additional funds to support our work. We also advanced equity in doing so in an important way. And I think perhaps most importantly of all, we were able to help people release untapped potential. We all know that there is a scandalously high rate of unemployment among people living with SCI. The flip side of that is that there are all kinds of people whose skills are going unused. And so that means that when you choose to involve those people, you benefit from tremendous potential as well as the passion that they bring to this kind of work. Finally, it really shifts the dynamic of the group and it changes the norms. When most of the people in the room have lived experience of SCI, conversations are different. And it's our belief that this has contributed really substantially to the authenticity of the program and the quality of the coaching experience for our participants. And so just my last slide here shows, this is a listing of all the people involved in our program across different areas from coaching. And the people in red, in italics, are people with lived experience of SCI. So what you see is that's 20 out of 27 people across all areas. Of course, all of the coaches have lived experience, but so do people operating in coordination, design, IT development, project management, and research. And again, we think that has been transformative. We're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish together and hopeful that this will spark or inspire something in you and that you might want to carry on the conversation with us. And with that, I'm going to toss to my colleague, Terry.
All right, thanks, John. So I see a lot of familiar names on the participant list. So probably a lot of you already know a little bit about me, but my name is Terry. I have had an injury, as John had mentioned, 26 years ago. And I have experienced peer support in my life, and it has really helped me grow as an individual. And I'm always looking for peer support even now, right? We're always changing and adapting, as I'm sure many of you are also. But also as a peer mentor. So I probably, was asked to support other individuals, newly individuals, probably similarly to many of you, maybe about 20 years ago or longer. And so the peer coaching role, when John first came to me, it's hard to believe. I asked John, how long ago was it? 6 years ago when this project actually started and I applied to be a health coach. I was really interested in finding out the difference between what a peer mentor or peer supporter and how it was different than what a peer health coach was. And I saw that the value, because I worked in the rehab hospital here in British Columbia, I could see that some of the training and the exhaustion that I was starting to feel in constantly telling my own story over and over and over again, and how, you know, if there are benefits to this coaching model. And as a also athlete, I've experienced coaching in my life and realized and recognized how valuable sort of that coaching model was. So I thought that was interesting. So 6 years ago, but in addition, there was another research study that I was a coach for, an all-wheel it's called, and it was a physical activity study, and also another one that I'm currently involved with as a coach and also the research coordinator for, which is a proactive study, which again is physical activity, but looking at people that are recently discharged from the rehab. And then also I think it's interesting, now that I'm transitioning from athlete to coach, although it's not necessarily a peer coaching role, it kind of becomes that because I am a peer and also a coach with wheelchair rugby. So it's kind of interesting. So I thought it would be kind of cool to share my experience about what peer mentoring or support looks like comparatively to coaching. So some of the things that I really appreciated about coaching was that it's very goals and solutions focused. So the participant or peer has a specific goal, and with brief action planning, it's a short goal. So the question that we would ask them is, what would you like to do for your health in 1 week, this week, or over the next couple weeks, if you may be. And it's very short, because I'm sure many of you have experienced I want to walk again, right? That's what I want to do. Okay, well, so in our training, it was no idea is a bad idea. You have to support them regardless. But let's break it down. Okay, so what are you going to do in this week to get to your big goal? And that's what I really liked about it. It was very that brief goal that we focused on. And then when people came with an issue that they wanted to address, it was very solutions focused. So we talked about what are some of the solutions that you can think of, and then you could offer, similarly to how we do in peer support, maybe some other ideas or things that you've experienced. I found it to be much more of a positive experience. So people were in the goal setting and finding solutions, whether it was online together or just sharing of experiences and asking questions all the time, it became a much more positive experience. Whereas sometimes in peer support, I find it to be, I mentioned earlier, like I'm reliving my experience over again, and it's almost like you feel like you're contributing to this like victimization of their trauma that they've experienced with spinal cord injury. So I found this to be much more of a positive experience. And of course, it's like kind of surrounded, you're looking at what strengths can they bring and what strengths you're bringing to the coaching model, and what they have as strengths to be able to, find what their solutions are, and to work on them. And typically, if you're following the brief action plan model, it's, goes kind of with the whole SMART goal idea, right? So it should be, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Those are always the things that we and if it's realistic, then most of the time they're going to accomplish what they set out to do, which helps them to gain a sense of confidence. I also really appreciate that it was, like, for myself, it's very scheduled. So it's not just like drop in and visit someone, when they're in the hospital. And then the role kind of changes a little bit. They start looking at you as a friend rather than a professional. And so the lines blur sometimes. But making sure that it's like any other professional, you have a scheduled appointment. It can also have a start date and an end date. Usually I schedule them for 1 hour. Sometimes they don't go that long, but I try to keep to that. And and that has really worked, I think, in that professionalization of the health coaching and the peer part of it. I've heard a lot from the participants how important the accountability piece is. So many have said that when I see that your name is on my calendar for the next week, it makes me accomplish my goals, right? So it's helping to create this sense of accountability. The training which I've received through the coaching program has been so much more extensive than what I experienced as a peer mentor or peer support person. Many times we're asked to be peer support people because we're positive and, you know, for lack of a better word, inspirational to some members of the community, and, you know, are thriving in our own lives. But there's not a lot of real training. And I really experienced this a couple of years ago when, especially I think because of COVID, a lot of people were experiencing, you know, mental health issues. So they come to you with all of these problems and you're constantly having to deal with the same problem over you. I mean, I'm sure many of you get this as well, but it's like the same person has the same problem for years. And so what I experienced was definitely compassion fatigue and burnout from doing peer support. So now I've only really given myself 1 hour a week now to be able to do that level where someone just wants to be listened to. That's really all they want. They actually don't probably want to find solutions or set goals. That's what I found. And that's okay. They just need someone to listen to them. But for my own mental health, that's not good for me. And so I would, you know, my preference is to work with people who really do want to set goals and help me and have me help them work on it. And it's really helped with that as well, you know, in me sort of feeling like I'm contributing to their victimization of their injury, right? And having to relive those moments over and over again, and all those issues that we all have, right? And all experience. So I think that's kind of my all I have to say about that, but I'm really welcome to any questions that you guys might have after everything's over. And I'll pass it on to Sarah.
Thanks, Terry. John's driving the slideshow, so you might hear me say next slide. Anyway, so hi, I'm Sarah. I just celebrated my 32nd year of living with a spinal cord injury. And I've been researching this peer health coach role since 2014, which is really hard to wrap my head around. Could we all be this old? Anyway, what I'm going to do in this presentation is I'm going to share a little bit about the roles that a peer health coach plays. And in presenting this to multiple groups of people over the last number of years, we have really learned that everybody has different ideas of what a peer is, what a peer mentor is. So I'm going to try to sort of use these terms in the way we see them within this study so that everybody sort of understands what a peer health coach is. What's important to understand is that a peer health coach is not a replacement for a peer mentor or a peer. It is an enhanced, it's an extended version of this. So this visual that we created sort of shows that all peer mentors are peers and all peer health coaches are peer mentors and peers. And as Terry and John both have said, living with spinal cord injury really helps us connect with those who are maybe living also with spinal cord injury, but maybe have less experience or are in some sort of health crisis or trying to manage a health challenge. And it may not be, we define health very, very broadly, very, very broadly. It could be transportation, it could be pressure sores, it could be just about everything, as everybody here can probably relate. And I wanted to say that, you know, this is a quote from one of our peer health coaches. In the US, we had 6 peer health coaches working in this study. And we tried to, you know, you've heard John, Terry, and I talk about the number of years we've been managing spinal cord injury. Not every peer health coach has decades of experience. We had peer health coaches with us living with their injury for about 5 years, up to 30 some odd years. So it really works across the spectrum of people and of mentoring. John, can you switch the slide, please? Thank you. This is another role definition slide. This is how we in this study look at the differences. You know, we're all peers. You don't need lived experience. You just have the experience of a spinal cord injury in this case. The relationship is generally unstructured, and it's just a lot about sharing lived experience. Peer mentoring, in some places, Terry mentioned little training. There are, depending, everybody's got a different kind of training. You can look and talk around people and they get maybe 6 to 8 hours of support. I'm sure there are programs that have more training, and there might be programs that have less training. It's sort of a very intentional relationship, but it tends to be more short-term and unstructured, in which you're addressing immediate needs by sharing information and sharing your lived experience. Now we go to the peer health coach. We have, as John pointed out, 90 plus hours of training, 2 certifications. It is a professional role, a paid professional role. And we feel really strongly about that we pay our peer health coaches an appropriate wage where that they can benefit from. And of course, this can be challenging in the US anyway, with working with all of the, I don't even know what to call it, all of the barriers to making money for some people. So we really had to be creative with some of the ways that we supported people, but it was financial, and it was very important part of this is that a peer health coach is a paid professional. Very intentional, long-term, structured relationship, as Terry and John pointed out. It's up to a 6-month relationship, and the focus is on facilitating health management, skill development, behavior change, understanding how to synthesize information, and knowing what, as John was pointing out, how much information, you know, what do you believe, what do you not believe, how do you understand all this information? Because everybody here can understand. You go on Google, it can be a nice rabbit hole you go down. So we try really hard to help our peers understand, know where to go for information, and understand what it means to them and their lives. John, can you switch the slide, please? Thank you. This is a new thing that came out of our more recent study. In a lot of focus group conversations with peer health coaches is why does spinal cord injury matter so much? And it's because you can be in any space at any time and relate to somebody because you're living with something similar that they're living with. And we think about, so basically the way we're going to describe it is like an automatic car shift. And the training that we have is the gear shift. And I'll describe this a little bit about how a peer health coach is the only person that can do this, that can shift between all these roles at any given time, any given place with any given person. Usually start in park when you first meet somebody. It takes a little while to develop a relationship. Some people it takes longer than others. I know in my experience, it took a while for some of the people that I coach to understand that I'm living with a similar diagnosis. And once somebody understands that, everything changes. And they're kind of ready to go. They kind of trust you automatically and like, oh, I get it, let's go. So you start in park and you just listen and you establish a relationship and use some of our training, some of the motivational interviewing training to sort of just be with somebody and figure out what their headspace is so that we can figure out a strengths-based approach to all of this. Some people are ready to go right away. It all depends. But some people who are ready to go right away, you start in drive, you move forward. Some people, as Terry mentioned, there are some people who really want to work on goals right away. And we are ready for that. There's some people that just want to talk about things they might want to do. We're ready for that. In neutral is when we're sort of in between sessions, when we may text somebody the accountability piece. Maybe we text somebody saying, hey, you said you were going to do this. Did you do it? How did it go? Sometimes we're just saying, keep it up, hang in there, etc. It's just supporting people. When someone comes across challenges, you kind of go into low gear and you try to help with problem solving, challenging, and you'll see the word advising here. And I know John said that we don't give advice. We don't give advice, but we help with the brief action planning piece. We help people figure things out. And so that's what I mean by advising, is more being a sounding board for people. Sometimes somebody can get really, really overwhelmed. That's when we just kind of go into reverse and back up and just kind of sit with somebody and listen, as Terry was talking about, where you're just listening to somebody. Sometimes that's just what somebody needs. And then you can help get them back into drive. So I hope that made sense. Anyway, can you change the slide, please? Oh. There you go. So this is just from our peer health coaches. This is how they felt about this role. Again, we had 6 people who had never been a peer health coach before. They had been peer mentors with at least 5 years of experience of peer mentoring. And our peer health coaches really appreciated, and I know the Canadians, all of us feel really, we feel it's very important that this turns into a professional space, because that's what you're doing. So anyway, you see the word, everybody who's seen a word cloud before knows that the bigger words are the ones that are mentioned more than others, but you'll see that a lot of these words are the same size. So there's a lot of positive, powerful things that come out of peer health coaching. This is from the peer health coach perspective. We are, there was a quote, I'm going to find it because I wrote it down because it was really good. We had a peer health coach say, I knew going into this, we would be helping people work on their goals and increase their knowledge of living life with a spinal cord injury. I didn't realize the program would also improve their sense of self-worth. It's pretty powerful. So anyway, John, can you advance, please? Thank you. All right, so the implications. Again, the PHC role is an expanded role for an experienced peer mentor. It does not replace peer visiting or peer mentoring or any of those spaces. It's good for people like Terry and me who have been peer mentors for a really long time and are just experiencing compassion fatigue as a result. It's really fun to work with people who start having a goal and start getting it. Oh, I'm going to live with this for a while. It's time I start moving forward and figuring out what I want out of my life. Coaching, we've learned that coaching by a trained peer health coach is a really effective way of addressing self-management. And as John pointed out, SCI PHCs are an untapped resource for sure. They use their experience and training to serve a variety of roles. This is a powerful role that no other healthcare professional who doesn't have a spinal cord injury can satisfy. And finally, as 20, that's right, John, it was really cool to see that number. I don't think about it much, but 20 people have been employed for 3 years now in this role, and it's a wonderful and meaningful employment opportunity. One more, please. Thank you. So next steps, where do we want to go with this? And one of the things that we're learning is that the training is low cost and readily implemented. It isn't that expensive to train, to go through the training. What we're trying to figure out now is a funding stream. How do we get peer health coaching into our systems? so that it is a paid position that is everywhere. We're thinking about, back to this model of care, is it a community health worker framework? Is that the next thing? I don't know. This is, do we do this nationally? Do we do this through clinics, through community-based organizations? Again, one of the things we throw out to all of you. And finally, in the pipeline for us right now is we have, we're waiting. We've submitted a proposal and we're waiting to hear. We won't know until September through a Creating Opportunity and Independence Community Support Grant through the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation. We would like to make this a program of the Connecticut chapter of United Spinal's, the Connecticut chapter of, I forget what it is, SCI. I'm sorry, Diana, I know you're on here. I always forget all the letters. The Spinal Cord Injury Association of Connecticut. And then we're also currently this team, John and Terry and I are a part of a team that is now developing an RCT proposal to connect peer health coaches with people at discharge from rehab to see what happens. We're trying to see how does this work across different populations. We are also looking to create more peer health coaches, and we want to diversify that pool as well. So that's our next steps. And that's it. So we're ready for questions, right? Oh, and all these, those are all publications. We've been publishing about this, and all the purple things were publications.
I see Kim had her hand up there, and then Jen.
Hi, Sarah, John, and Terry. It's Kim Anderson. Thank you for such a great talk. I'm wondering, Sarah, with your last slide there about what are ways to kind of expand and fund the peer health coaching model. I wonder if, do you envision your group being able to train people, and then could somebody, like for example with the model systems, could we budget money to pay for a peer health coach for our center?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. The training is, I think we could have peer health coaches everywhere, to be honest with you. It's not that, it's what, 90 hours of training and sort of 2 days of mental health first aid. And I don't remember how long brief action planning takes. Do you remember how long it takes?
Do you have a training guide that other locations can implement?
We do, yes. That's something that John and I have done. John trained all of the Canadian peer health coaches, and I trained all the US peer health coaches, and we worked together in all of this. It wasn't like he was in one silo and I was in another silo. We all kind of exist together. We continue to meet weekly. We've met weekly every Friday for what, 4 years now? So there's a lot of possibilities, Kim, and I really appreciate that you're thinking about it like that, because I don't know, we're just exploring all the ways that we can get this out there.
It's definitely a critical piece that needs to be incorporated into the current world, because I actually really resonated with me, John's initial statement that people with SCI are trained to live with SCI by non-disabled individuals. And it just doesn't make sense, because as we all live with SCI, we know that some things, are just not the way that they are in books.
Exactly. And one of the really powerful roles of a peer health coach is to direct people to resources and
right.
Because it's such a massive Google world out there, right? And if you going to common places that that information is really accurate for this person. So there's a lot of tailoring. We have a peer health coach that refers to peer health coaching as tailoring, like you tailor a suit or you tailor a clothing to somebody so that it fits them perfectly. And or as perfectly as it's going to. And that's sort of how we can also look at, it's sort of an analogy about peer health coaching.
Thank you.
Awesome. Jen, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for a great presentation. Actually, to dovetail off of what Kim was mentioning, as we know, there's so many people that don't go to model care systems. I mean, it's obviously, to Kim's point, it would be a good fit with model care, but you mentioned that it's all virtual. So I'm curious of how we can tap into all those of us, including me, who never went to a model care system and kind of had to learn the hard way, if you will, if you've found a way to tap into that population.
Well, I could even possibly go one better and say that we've been able to reach people not only who didn't go through a model system. I mean, it's not quite the same in Canada, but I could say that we have some centers that are roughly equivalent in terms of the type of care that they offer. But people with non-traumatic injuries or incomplete injuries sometimes simply don't do rehab at all, right? They're managed in the community. And we've had some of those people go through the program. And in some cases, the impact has been phenomenal because they've actually, for the first time, been able to access SCI specific information and resources. They've been able to get better connected with health care professionals in their own community. So I think, if I understand the sort of direction of your question, Jen, that this program can have particular, very it can be very impactful for people to the extent that they're disconnected from the best expertise in the system.
Yeah, great, thank you. Kind of an ancillary question to that is, one of the things that we learned during COVID amongst our population is that there's a digital divide within the spinal cord injury community. And if I understand this correctly, it's all virtual. Have you thought about how to overcome that digital divide with maybe those that don't have access to high-speed internet? You're shaking your head, John, so you probably have some thoughts about it.
Yeah, no, but both of us. I mean, I'll go first quickly, and then Sarah, toss to you. But no, this has been a huge preoccupation for us, of course, and inclusivity is a massive concern. I'll just say that first of all, the program has been designed. There's a concept in technology that features should or websites should degrade elegantly, or in other words, when it doesn't work, it should default to something that works close to the way it should. And so we, in some cases, deliver this program over the phone. And did so very successfully. And in a couple of cases, we're able to adapt to very unique circumstances that some of our participants had. I'll just say, in terms of things like, their dexterity or ability to use devices. So we're confident that that's feasible. And the program remains effective if you're not, if you're doing it over the phone rather than online. But the other thing I'll say is that we're also noticing that people are going in a certain direction, and so the digital divide issue is critical. But by the same token, we want to be designing a program that will be good for the future. And so we're hoping that over time, more and more people will have access to the sort of the full experience online, and so that it does make sense to focus on that. Sarah, would you?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is that one of what we did a lot, well, we did it on all sides, is we had people who were peer health coaches were training people to elevate their digital skills, their virtual skills. Not everybody had the skills to use the platform, for example, right away. So maybe we'd start on the phone and just gently work with somebody on the phone. And they were like, okay, we can do the phone. Right now we can do Google Meet. Okay, now why don't I get you online and work on getting onto the platform? So it was a process for some people, but a lot of people improved those who needed to improve skills. Like I worked with somebody who didn't want to use the platform at all. And so we used the phone. And then slowly, finally, they said, can we get on the platform? So it kind of made it like a goal. I didn't realize it was a goal for them. So I think this is a nice way. Another thing our coaches were able to do were to find resources for people to help them figure out how to find technology that worked for them. Because, you know, Easter seals, there's a variety of local organizations everywhere, wherever anybody lives, that might support buying tablets or laptops or things like that. And the platform that was designed worked on phones, tablets, and on regular old PCs.
Great. Thank you. Great program.
Awesome. Patricia Morton, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I have both a comment and a couple of questions. First of all, I was very impressed with the emphasis on listening rather than telling. I think you often find if a person talks long enough, they find their own solutions. All of a sudden they go, oh, I could do this or that. So I think that's just a real positive in that. And then I have a couple of questions. One, as you thought of the future, have you thought of what I would call a geometric progression, that you use your present coaches to train coaches? Is if you continue to do it one-on-one, you're never going to meet the need that's out there. And related to that is to find a pool of experts in certain things that all the coaches can call on. For example, setting up computer systems, what works, what are good voice activated and all that kind of thing. So that, because everybody can't be an expert in everything, the coaches are experts in being coaches. So to try to get lawyers, bankers, computer experts, and you don't need a ton of them, you just need a few that you can call on when you have a question or you can refer somebody to. Then those are a couple of suggestions. Then the question I have is, how do you match people with a coach? Do you match level of injury, age, gender, especially how long they've been injured? And what do you think on reflection now with these exit interviews? What's the value of matching? And because that's one kind of shared experience. What's the value of not matching? For example, is it more valuable for someone who's been injured 5 years to be matched with someone 5 years? Or is it more valuable for someone injured 5 years to be matched with somebody who's been injured for 25? And of course, there's huge differences in the level of injury in terms of what they experience in life. So my question is, your reflections, your thoughts on that whole matching question, especially as you expand.
Again, I'll take a crack at it and then happy to toss to you or Sarah or Terry. This is a huge, I mean, thank you for asking the question. It's a very astute one because this is a really big and important topic. We've thought about it a lot. I would say that it's art as much as science. I would say that we're still learning, that in some cases, people's concerns are very much oriented around their lived experience, their particular life situation. And so it might be important to match based on that. In other cases, it doesn't matter as much. What I will say is that we've designed the program and trained the coaches so that in principle, anyone can coach anyone. That is, any coach is able to coach any participant, right? It's not, and this is one important difference from a peer support or a peer mentoring relationship. It's not dependent on the personal chemistry or the shared experience. Rather, it's dependent on the coach's ability to develop self-management skills. So that applies across the board. Having said that, we are, we've learned that, again, there is some art to this, and we have some very skilled and dedicated research associates, research assistants that have been working on doing things like consenting participants and matching. And we've relied a lot on their feel, frankly, for the way that people might get along. And that doesn't always, necessarily pan out, although I can't say we've had any bad experiences with matches. But as you point out, the exit interviews we're doing right now are telling us more about this, and we're going to continue to learn. But I think the key thing, as I said, is that we train people so they can coach anyone.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna follow with, John, is it's surprising, it's shocking. That was a big takeaway for us back with My Care, My Call, is that it didn't matter who there didn't have to be a lot of, the matching was more over developing a relationship with somebody and that you had the common experience of living with spinal cord injury, but it didn't have to be even based on gender. So it just works because people are trained to do this. And I think the motivational interview training, we aren't certified in motivational interviewing because we don't have to be, but we do a lot. We learn a lot of skills related to that are connected to motivational interviewing. And so it was exciting to learn that this is actually very portable, that you don't necessarily need to match as much as you do with peer mentoring sometimes, because this is a long-term relationship that is going to be established as it is in its space. And anyway, that sort of took away that. I still think we want to diversify our coaching pool because we need that. We need as many diverse voices as possible contributing to this to make sure it remains effective among different populations.
A quick follow-up question. What is just rough, the range of years past injury of your coaches? What's the shortest point after injury and what's the longest? Just our, ballpark figures.
5 to 30.
5 to 30.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Terry, did you want to say something?
I was just going to add sort of my personal experience in the sort of peer support versus peer coach, and what and to your question, Patricia, was that I think, like, as a peer coach and not having been matched to my participants, they're not comparing themselves to me anymore. And sometimes in peer support, I ran into some issues where, well, I'm not like you. Like, your disability may be the same, but I'm not like you. And so I think that sort of solved all of those issues because they weren't using you as a comparison, that you had to be, an educated individual, or a professor or a Paralympian or this or that, right? It can be very overwhelming for people if they're comparing themselves to that.
Thank you. I just remember hearing a father of a young man who was injured for 5 years talk to a man whose son had been just recently injured. I just happened to walk by the conversation when one said to the other, take care of your marriage. I didn't. And that was based on 5 years of dealing with living with spinal cord injury. So that's why I was asking how the matches work and a difference between someone who's ventilator dependent and somebody who's paraplegic. Life is different in different circumstances, and you learn. And I think Terry's right. You don't want a situation where the person thinks they have to be you.
Yeah, and the other thing is that none of the peer health coaches exist in their own little vacuum either. We meet on a regular basis, and so we bounce ideas from each other. And because we have the injury levels and experience run from someone with C4 quadriplegia to people that ambulate. So we have a very wide range, and so there's a lot of experience we can talk to each other about. What would you do? What do you think? And so that, again, going back to our pool of people, it is very, very helpful, very powerful, and brings us to resources that are hopefully work for those that we're coaching.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Carrie just put her information in the chat if you have any more questions. Also, we will have this recording up hopefully within the week for everyone to share and send out. But I definitely want to thank our presenters. I think this is a awesome topic of really elevating standard peer support to something that can be much more impactful. And I know in my community here, I think it would be very beneficial to have a program like this. So I think we'll be reaching out as well. But thank you everyone so much for your time, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks so much for the invitation. It was great to speak to you, and please stay in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.